IKIM Inspirasi Inforia Islami. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajma'in. Rabbi syrahli sadri wa yassirli amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Open Forum. You are with me, your host, Enizahura Abdul Aziz. And inshallah today we are going to talk about social cohesion with the Malaysia, and then this is the second part of our conversation last week, and we have with us Professor Datuk Dr. Azizan Baharuddin, the Director Center for Civilizational Dialogue, and also the former Director General of IKIM, to talk about this particular topic. Datuk, maybe I can just recap what we have discussed last
Yes.
week. We've talked about some of the factors that actually affect social cohesion in Malaysia, where you've mentioned about things like shared values in terms of what we have with one another, and the importance of getting to know one another, the reality of the Malaysian society with regard to this. And you have also mentioned how in terms of aspect of what is the difference between social cohesion and unity, and also integration, that you have shared with our listeners last week. I think we are going to talk about other aspect with regard to this. We stopped last week talking about the challenges, so maybe we
Yes.
can share with our listeners, Datuk. When we talk about social cohesion, we talk about so many aspect of this. What are some of the challenges, Datuk, that affect this? Specifically in Malaysia, Datuk.
Thank you so much, Puan Eni. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajma'in. Rabbi syrahli sadri wa yassirli amri wa uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali sayyidina Muhammad. Thank you so much for having me again to continue our conversation regarding social cohesion. Yeah, Eni.
Yeah.
Okay, when we speak of challenges, I think we need to overcome the fact that we are still not properly appreciative of the fact of our diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are asking us, Muslim scholars actually, telling us that our diversity is a sacred, is a sacred fact. It is a given fact. Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala has created us diverse, and I think last week you mentioned this ayat, Surah Hujurat ayat 13, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
We are created deliberately by Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala from Adam and Eve into different nations and tribes,
Yes.
so that we get to know one another. This is actually specified, getting to know each other, and that the best amongst you are the best in taqwa. And surely, if we look at the tafsir, if we look at the elaborations by our scholars, getting to know is a great wisdom in itself. Getting
Yeah.
to know each other, there is great value in getting to know each other across the diversity. We might learn things from each other. This is how civilizations grow actually. Civilizations grow because they mutually borrow from each other. They mutually absorb positivities from each other, yeah, and their encounters. And remember, all the DNA that is put inside the whole of humanity comes from Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. And we are also told, as Allah says to Rasulullah SAW in many surah, I can remember Surah Al-Kahfi, for example. If after having done da'wah, after having called people to Tawheed, people still don't follow you, do not be distressed, because leave them to Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. Our job is to tell. Yeah. So don't stress ourselves. So I think, and we have Surah Al-Kafirun to remind us of the fact that there will be moments, times, occasions when we just have to be clear to the other, okay, if they don't want to follow Tawheed. Because the most critical point is Tawheed. Culture, how we eat, what trees we like, what flowers we like, these are dependent on environmental factors. If you are born in the South Pole or North Pole, your environment will be totally different from tropical Malaysia, for example. But what is critical for us to come to agree, mutually agree upon, is Tawheed. And only Allah knows who at the end of the day will actually go to Jannah or otherwise.
Yeah.
So I think most of the time we are stressful about diversity because we forget some of these things. So
Mm-hmm.
when we are stressed about diversity, we are disturbed and we cannot properly appreciate diversity as something that is a given from a greater force than ourselves. We don't
Yeah.
appreciate it, we don't accept it, we don't live with it. We don't become the best that we can be towards the other. So I think this is a challenge,
Yeah.
especially when we speak about being followers of a certain religion such as Islam. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
individuals, I think, from various ethnic backgrounds need to know and appreciate the attitudes, the institutions, the traditions shared by the others. So this is the knowledge component. Yeah,
Yeah.
we need to know. There has to be lessons, there has to be modules, there has to be subjects. And I think last week we touched upon how in university level we have TITAS, we have ethnic relations. And I think in schools there are also what I read as what is called projects for integrating students.
Mm-hmm.
Rancangan integrasi murid di
Mm-hmm.
sekolah. So we have not had the opportunity to delve into that. A book was published by a researcher from Keta in UKM in 2019. It's a Japanese author, and he did the study from 2015 to 2017, and
Mm-hmm.
he wanted to see the effect of this particular subject, or program at schools in Malaysia. Apparently, there were positive outcomes. So there you are. We have to start as early as possible. And then
Yeah.
we also have Rukun Negara. I think when it was first propounded, people very enthusiastic about Rukun Negara, right? But after
Yes.
a while, it was not thought about very much. But I think of late, we hear
Mm-hmm.
about Club Rukun Negara, for example, at schools and at
Yeah.
universities. So I think we should all support that, and I think we should make it a conscious make it a conscious effort on our part to get to know who our neighbors are.
Mm-hmm.
If that, when there's Deepavali, when there's recently there's a Mooncake Festival, there's a festival of Mid Autumn by our Chinese colleagues. So what is that all about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what is that all about? Where did the tradition come from, and what are the aims of the tradition? You know, when you know something, it doesn't mean that you are get sucked into that system. And I think this is the fear. When
Mm-hmm.
you get to know something, you might be sucked into that system that you are studying. If we think like that, then we are in deep trouble, isn't it? Then we won't want to study history, we won't want to study philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
When it's our job to get to know what the world is around us. And the
Yeah.
Muslim, remember, is a born scientist. This is what Professor Ismail Al-Faruqi says. What does that mean? He is forever watchful. He's forever observing,
Mm-hmm.
and he's forever doing reflection on what Allah says in the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
Because the meaning of the Quran will come out when you actually apply it in your observations of your outside world. This is important. And then another challenge, I think, is that we need to understand that to achieve common goals, we need to come together. So, what's a very important common goal at the moment? To get rid of what do you call it, corruption.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we I think we are so like we have come to the stage of being immune. I think there's just so much talk about this, but but seriously, when you go places outside of Malaysia, it's a challenge
Yeah.
to sort of live with that image of your country, so it's a very serious business. So it's not enough by us doing fantastically bad remarks on social media, but I know at IKIM there are books that come out of maybe the chairman of IKIM himself about these strong statements. So uh, and we should be coming together with other forces that try to do the same. So and then economic upliftment, yeah, we need to do what we call it, we need to narrow the gap between rich and poor and all that, so we need to come together. Then the
Mm-hmm.
challenge is also uh, we need to see ourselves from time to time as one entity instead of just a collection of individuals. So when we celebrated Hari Merdeka, 31st of August, many
Mm-hmm.
people commented that it was a momentous event, right? So
Yes.
Malaysia came together and celebrated. So I think that's one of the examples. But what are other examples? mind you, from the perspective of the environment, because we also speak a lot about sustainability, environmental sustainability, because if the environment is not sustainable, then our economies will go, our health will be disturbed, and all of this. So we can bring these common elements of concern to bring us together, to make us feel that we are one entity. As Malaysians, what do we do? Yeah? And I think another challenge is we should respect, uh, we should try to overcome cohesive gaps, groups that are against cohesiveness. We should try to engage them instead of just telling them off. We should engage them. We should actually
Mhm.
get to the bottom of things. Yeah, why are you like this? And we try. We're not saying that we've got the solutions. And given the level of education, the level of exposure, the level of accessibility to gadgetry, the smartphone and all that, I think we can do it, and I think we're seeing it in the past 2 years during the pandemic. I think Malaysians have come to the fore to show that they can overcome these challenges. But the first two that we spoken about is slightly more serious, especially the knowledge component. There has to be
Yeah.
serious effort at emphasizing that one. Yeah, I think we
Mhm.
pause there. Yeah.
Okay, Datuk. I think you've talked about this, challenges, the knowledge component. Last week, you also mentioned about, a recent report. Briefly, you mentioned about what Rajaratnam School of International Studies have actually presented or published this
Yeah.
particular report.
Mm.
And, based on that report, countries in the region like Thailand, like Singapore, are said to have better level of social cohesion.
Mm-hmm.
um, do you think, are the dynamics of the Malaysia's multicultural, multi-ethnic, and multi-religious identities make it slightly difficult to achieve a higher level of social cohesion
Yeah.
in the country compared to, countries like Thailand and Singapore, too?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Annie. On this, from the 6th to the 8th of September,
Yeah.
recently there's this special international conference on social cohesiveness and confident identities,
Mm-hmm.
organized by mainly the RSIS, Rajaratnam School of International Studies,
Mm-hmm.
assisted by the Ministry of Culture in Singapore and other relevant authorities in Singapore. So it was a huge occasion in the sense that uh, e- many people were invited. Many delegates were there. They were fully sponsored. So kudos to RSIS for having this conference.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you can imagine people of various ethnicities, of various religious affiliations, NGOs were there, yeah, and
Yeah.
they crafted the sessions such that there was a kind of interfaith intercultural dialogue, but then again, it took on a slightly more, I wouldn't use the word professional, but like I think once in our conversation you said to us, it's no more about unity, it's about cohesiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Unity is too bland, too simplistic a term. Right now we get into the details of unity, which is
Mm-hmm.
cohesiveness. There is unity, there is no cohesiveness, and last week we spoke about the what cohesiveness means and what is required. Yeah. So back to the question, when they did the study, when RSIS did the study, we were number three. And
Mm-hmm.
is this because of the different dynamics? I totally agree with you. It's a
Mm-hmm.
different dynamics. So when we have rankings, we should take it positively again, yeah, and look at what it means. So number three, we are number three because precisely because we are more complex, we are more complicated. If you look at Singapore, and in the last session, the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister of Singapore spoke, and I
Mm-hmm.
think he voiced this feeling. If you saying that there is so much top down policies in Singapore for achieving social cohesiveness, I ask you back the question: could you have done it in any other way? not that whatever policies they had were extremely violent or were extremely, painful for the people, no. But given their history, given their the trajectory in terms of their development of where they are today, they had to have, uh, you know, policies that they have. So again, also last week, I think we began to say something like their policies in terms of social integration and cohesiveness is very detailed, very very detailed. Not only in their housing, but I think there are in we have kampungs in Malaysia. We have villages, we have daerah, we have districts, right? That they
Yeah.
have a similar kind of structure. So at almost all of these levels, to the smallest units, they have a social cohesive group.
Mhm.
What do you call it? Entity
Mhm.
related to the government, of course, that actually consciously bring people together. Maybe through mutually important, mutually significant programs,
Mhm.
taking care of the environment, taking care of the less able. So there's many excuses to bring people together. But what is very touching is when there's free food, say by the Muslims,
Mhm.
at mosques, Sultan Mosque in Jalan, in Arab Street, for example. So the food is there for everybody who needs it. And it's quite a fallacy to say that the world, maybe, people can argue about this, but if you talk about the marginalized, if you talk about the less fortunate, I think it cuts across the boundaries there.
Mhm.
So if you want to make statements that are, mm, that are overly critical of a certain country, I think you make sure you have as much information as possible. And then
Mhm.
Thailand, I think what in Thailand, I think the homogeneity in terms of the race perhaps is different from Malaysia. The
Yeah.
homogeneity in terms of the religious affiliations also is different from Malaysia. Of course, people will speak about Southern Thai and all this. That's a different matter altogether.
Mhm.
Uh, but I think we shouldn't be upset when we are number three.
Mhm.
It's okay because it's just a number in the
Mhm.
ranking.
Yeah.
But what makes number one, number two, number three are different. Yeah, even though when they when they did the study, there was the standard domains. There were three domains that they used when they did the study.
Mhm.
So these domains are social relations. What does that mean? That means they try to measure three domains: social relations, connectedness, and focus on the common good. So these are the what they call it, the factors that are
Mhm.
important in bringing about social cohesiveness, uh, which was being measured by the RSIS. So
Mhm.
by social relations, they were looking at social networks, trust in people, acceptance of diversity. There you are. Number
Mhm.
one, there has to be acceptance of diversity. You have to be trusting of people. When you accept, then maybe you think of them as fellow human beings to begin with, and then your
Yeah.
fitra says if this person is having good relations with me, then there is room for trust, right? And then
Yeah.
it's also interlinked with our social networks. How we actually network with people, do we encounter them, do we do similar things with them? So like we mentioned just now, in Singapore, it's very obvious that they do this in a conscious manner. And then number two, connectedness. This is related to identification. Do people identify themselves as Malaysians, as Thai, as Singaporeans very easily? Trusts in situations, trust in institutions that are available in the country. So what are institutions? Education institutions, the economic institutions, the political institutions, judiciary institutions. So we have this in all countries. So apparently the trust in these institutions is very high in Singapore. And I think without being biased here, yeah, people can say, and Singaporeans voice this out themselves. Yeah, we are a tiny nation. It's easier for us to do it. right? We are just a tiny dot. They say that. No big deal. Yeah, but they just say it works for them. So maybe in Thailand, what's the population in Thailand? Slightly more difficult to have very efficient systems and institutions, right? Because
Mm.
there's a lot of variety. And then come to Malaysia, even more difficult, right?
Yeah.
Just the education institution. You still have the vernacular schools. You still have the vernacular schools. And we have things like people still enjoying their own race, polarization. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think humorously without meaning to take things non-seriously, polarization is an issue again in Malaysia. I mean, it happens, right? So
Mm.
but let's not kill ourselves over that. Let's just try to understand it, why it happens, and what can we do to overcome it. And then
Mm.
perception of fairness perception of fairness. Maybe the authorities, okay, are being fair to everybody, right? But the perception is important. Perception over what? Over in terms of people getting contracts, in terms of people getting promotions, in terms of whatever. There's so
Mhm.
many this, right? So it so happens in Malaysia, yeah, maybe the situation is different from exactly from Singapore and Thailand. And then the third one, focus on the common good. Focus on the common good. So in Singapore, it's very obvious people are made, possibly or otherwise, to focus on solidarity and helpfulness. Solidarity and helpfulness, and respect for social rules. Respect for social rules. Um, what are samples of social rules? I think after the Merdeka celebration, there was a video that went viral of a
Yeah.
foreigner picking up garbage in the area where they had the celebration, right? So
Yeah.
what does that say about us respecting social rules? We still have people very happily throwing things out of their car on the road, yeah. And then civic participation. You look at just the at school. What is that? The teacher parent association, the PTA,
Mm.
civic
PIBG.
participation. Yeah, PIBG. I hear complaints here and there about about that one, right? So this is not to mention other things, civic in nature. So
Mhm.
yeah, kudos to Singapore, despite their smallness. So be it. Yeah, they don't hide that fact. It's easier when you're smaller in numbers, perhaps. Yeah.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm.
but yeah. So in Malaysia, the dynamics are different. Yes. But after having said that, do we leave it at that? No. Now that we know better, let's work on this all these things: social relations, connectedness, and focus on the common good.
Mhm.
Oh, I think the value of the study was they had a kind of structure, right? They narrowed it down to these three domains. Do we agree with these three domains? You want to change it? Well, let's work on it. Let's work together with them. And of
Mhm.
course, they were doing the analysis in the ASEAN countries,
Yeah.
and they realized that there are many things that work against the success of these three domains, amongst which is uh, urbanization. When people become urbanized, they will be more exposed to all kinds of conditions which make social cohesiveness more challenging.
Mhm.
This issue of how much do you keep your traditional values? And I think it's related to the question you posed last week. How
Mhm.
different are Malaysians today than Malaysians of 30, 40 years ago? Why was it so much easier then for us to mix together as
Yeah.
compared to now? Yeah, because of partly urbanization as well, because people exposed to more so-called postmodern values, and then
Mhm.
they're less attached to traditional values, because those days almost everybody live in the kampong. All
Mhm.
races live in the kampong. So whether they like it or not, they shared common values, common norms.
Yeah.
The Azan is heard by all the communities, and nobody complained.
Mhm.
Some even enjoyed it. Some even used it. to the benefit of their own livelihoods and their own lives. It's
Yeah.
like their alarm clock in the morning, so to speak, and so on and so on. Yeah. So I think we and also this study is based on their interviews of nearly thought leaders of each of the countries. So
Mm-hmm.
and the numbers were limited.
Mm-hmm.
Again, so to conclude, I would say with you, I would agree with you that yeah, we are different, but there are lessons to be learned, and we thank our colleagues there who did this research, and we should do likewise. Maybe there are, but
Yeah.
like they said at the beginning of their reports, and I fortunately have, we can share with you later.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this social cohesiveness is not looked upon as something very important or very serious. But looking at the world today, and you talking about, okay, we are, like you said just now, we've just celebrated our independence, the Independence Day, 31st of August, and then
Mm-hmm.
today is Malaysia Day,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, it's International Democracy Day.
Mm-hmm.
So we should reflect on all of this. Everybody in all sectors must reflect on this. Oh, I'm at technologies, I don't deal with. No, it's about time we understand what being a nation is all about, what responsibilities we have as citizens of a nation.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot say let others think about this. No, there must be a modicum of understanding and intentional, niat, yeah, intentional effort or efforts or choices to make social cohesion possible, and after that unity attainable. Because without us having this focus in terms of identification, I'm a Malaysian, then there's no meaning to being a nation, is it not? And
Yeah.
what overwhelming this today, the extreme forms of capitalism, for example. Because in the pursuit of extreme wealth, people are willing to put aside sense of compassion towards others, sense of caring towards others, sense of
Mm-hmm.
neighborliness, sense of responsibility to help others who are not as fortunate as you. And these are all the foundations of cohesiveness. And of
Yeah.
course, because the focus was very much on conventional knowledge and know-how, but they did not miss out. Interestingly enough, like in the case of Singapore, religious
Mm-hmm.
values were fleshed out as being very important as forces to nurture characteristics of cohesiveness, because it means the human being becomes a good human being, fills up his potential at all the positive inclinations that a human can offer to others.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, in Singapore, the major religion, I think this is, correct me if I'm wrong, they highlighted the importance of all the religions in Singapore, of course. So we had speakers from Taoist community, from Buddhist community. There were Muslim speakers also. So everyone was in agreement that they need to talk to each other. And most recently, we also hear that top scholars in the Muslim community of the world are also saying that peaceful coexistence, fiqh ta'ayush, should
Yeah.
come up, should come to the fore,
Mm-hmm.
should be fleshed out, should be shared with others. Just like there has been declarations for climate change from the Muslim community, from the Christian community in the world, like Datuk say Christians and Islamic declaration for climate change by the Muslims, international declarations. There should be declarations for, like in the year 2007, if I'm not mistaken, one of the Muslim countries made a move at the United Nations General Assembly. It was accepted. And that
Mm-hmm.
year was proclaimed International Year for Dialogue of Civilizations. So it's big deal. And Muslims are always at the forefront. And there's the Amman Accord, there's many other, what they call it, initiatives for Muslims in the world. And I think this is a good, post Rajaratnam school reports. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a time for IKIM and other colleagues and friends in the country who are associated with this topic to work on this, to capture the attention of others. Let's share, because there's a lot of talk about how to save the planet physically,
Yeah.
but we need to save the planet morally. That they
Yeah.
cannot save the planet physically without saving morality, without saving ethics, without saving compassion, without saving and the qualities that make the important norms of a society, that make a country thrive, right? And
Yeah.
I think um, yeah, yeah, we should not to say celebrate, we should support this study and expand it and make it ours, and we also must put it in line with other studies done, like we spoke about the happiness index last week in
Yeah.
Malaysia. Yeah, so how can
Mm-hmm.
we move from 6.48 to number 8, for example? And I think
Yes.
the greatest enemy is cynicism. The greatest enemy is this fear. The greatest enemy is his apathy. These are all human conditions which can only be addressed by the religious factor, is it not? By the
Yes.
spiritual factor.
Mm-hmm.
These are elements, what we call needing tazkiyah to nafs.
Yeah.
We have to educate our nafs, our qalb, our mental health, our
Mm-hmm.
spiritual well-being. Yeah, and I think Ikim speaks a lot about this. So today we are speaking about narratives that could harmonize
Yes.
conventional knowledge, yeah, and reveal knowledge. And it's some we can bring up the word tadabbur. So and when we say that the Quran is everlastingly relevant, so we must
Yeah.
show proof of that. And today I think congratulations to you for bringing up this topic. It's very, very important. And why stop at the conference by Singapore? Why
Yeah.
can't it keep a conference? You know,
Mhm.
similar or related or something like that. I think it's been a long, long time, isn't it, since we've done. And we have of late the national trust, isn't it? Keluarga Malaysia Terbersama.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we take the family as an example. So isn't that something that's critical to our tradition? In our tradition, beginning
Mm-hmm.
with the parents, I think the highest dosa, the highest sin that you can commit is, besides shirk, uh, is being untrue to your parents, being
Yeah.
disrespectful to your parents. So starting from there, and that's an issue that cuts across the board. In all the communities, there would be that issue. So
Yeah.
so I think it's time to dialogue, but we give extra meaning or deeper meaning to dialogue. Dialogue of life, if you want. Yeah. And we are
Yeah.
not dialoguing theology, of course. We are dialoguing issues that face us. And whether you look at it from the conventional perspective or the religious perspective, okay, the the topic that you've chosen, the report that you've mentioned just now, I think it's of relevant. It should grab our attention today. Yeah.
Alright. Thank you, Datuk, for your
Hmm.
perspective and insight on this particular topic. What you have shared and also elaborated is considerably important. And also, you talked about how we need to become responsible Malaysians, responsible
Yes.
citizens, and with regard to this topic of social cohesion, hopefully, what you have discussed and what you have actually presented would create that sense of awareness, the importance of this,
InsyaAllah.
achieving this, insyaAllah, Datuk.
Okay.
With that, once again, I thank you, Yang Bahagia, Professor Datuk Dr. Azizan Baharuddin, for being with us to talk about our topic, social cohesion with the Malaysia. And to my fellow, to my producer, Haja Mazina Ismail, and to also our listeners for being with us in this program. We talk again, inshallah, in another season of Open Forum. With that, I thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much.